Civil War, 600,000 dead, the country's in ruins, everyone's traumatized, and naturally his first move is to have a prophetic nightmare about his own corpse. Very chill, very normal.
I'm sorry, what?
April 9th, 1865, Lee surrenders at Appomattox. 5 days later, Lincoln tells his wife and his bodyguard that he dreamed he was walking through the White House, heard people crying, found a coffin in the East Room, asked a soldier who died, and the soldier said, quote, the president, he was killed by an assassin.
Mike, that is genuinely the most horrifying thing I've ever heard.
Gets worse. This was not his first death dream. He'd been having them for weeks. Multiple witnesses documented this. And here's the mechanism you need to understand. Lincoln was running on fumes. 4 years of civil war, the entire nation torn apart, and he's holding it together through sheer force of will and what his secretaries called melancholy genius.
So he's what? Psychic? Having a breakdown? Both?
Probably both. The dude was sleeping 3 hours a night, getting death threats daily, literally stacks of letters saying, we're going to kill you. And he developed this really weird fatalism about it.
Which is?
He told people multiple times, I know they're going to kill me. I just hope they wait until I finish the job.
That is the most Lincoln thing I've ever heard. Yeah, assassinate me, but let me rebuild the nation first, thanks.
Exactly. And here's what people don't get about Lincoln's final days. This is not a guy celebrating victory. This is a guy who knows the hardest part is coming. Because winning the war, that's one thing. Winning the peace, totally different.
And he could see it coming.
He could see all of it coming. He'd been planning Reconstruction since 1863, planning amnesty, planning how to bring the South back, planning how to integrate 4 million newly freed people who had nothing, no land, no money, no education.
While half the country wanted them re-enslaved.
Right. So the mechanism here is what I call the successor problem. Lincoln understood that his vision for Reconstruction was fragile. If something happened to him, Andrew Johnson would become president, and Johnson was a disaster.
How bad?
Imagine the worst possible person to handle Reconstruction. Now make him worse. Johnson was a Southern Democrat who opposed secession but loved slavery. He hated enslaved people becoming free more than he hated the Confederacy.
So basically, he was a Confederate who stayed in the Union out of spite.
Exactly. And Lincoln knew this. He picked Johnson as VP in 1864 purely for politics to appeal to border states, show he could work with Democrats. But privately, he told people Johnson was a mistake.
Okay, but hold on. If Lincoln knew Johnson was terrible and he was having death dreams, why didn't he just pick a different VP?
Because he already won re-election. You can't just swap out your VP mid-term because you had a nightmare.
Why not? It's his nightmare. He's the president. Hey, Congress, I had a bad dream, so we're getting a new VP. Problem solved.
Mark, that's not how democracy works.
Democracy's how we got Andrew Johnson, so maybe I'm onto something.
Okay, fair. Anyway, Lincoln's having these death dreams. He knows his VP is a disaster, and he's supposed to just ignore it.
What did he do?
He took precautions. He had a bodyguard named Ward Hill Layman who literally slept outside his bedroom door with a pistol and a Bowie knife. Lamont was massive, 6'2", former lawyer, completely devoted to Lincoln.
Okay, good.
But Lincoln kept ditching him.
Why?
Because Lincoln had this principle he called public accessibility. He believed that in a democracy, the president shouldn't hide from the people. So he'd take walks alone, go to the theatre without guards, meet random citizens who showed up at the White House.
Mike, that's insane. That's like the Pope doing parkour without a harness.
I know. And Lamont would scream at him. Mary Todd would scream at him. His entire cabinet was terrified. But Lincoln had this almost fatalistic view. If someone wanted him dead badly enough, they'd find a way.
Which is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Completely. And this is what I call the fatalism trap. If you believe you're destined to die, you stop taking basic precautions and then you die. And everyone's like, wow, he predicted it. But really, you just made it easier.
So Lincoln basically RSVP'd to his own assassination.
Kind of, yeah. And it gets weirder because we need to talk about the paranormal stuff.
Oh, there's more paranormal stuff.
So much more. Lincoln was one of the most supernaturally connected presidents in American history. After their son Willie died in 1862, Mary Todd Lincoln became obsessed with spiritualism.
Spiritualism?
This was peak ghost culture in America. Everyone thought you could talk to the dead through seances. And Mary held seances in the Red Room of the White House.
In the White House? Just casually ghost hunting between cabinet meetings?
Yes. And Lincoln attended. Multiple times, not constantly, but 8 to 10 documented seances where he sat there, asked questions, seemed genuinely interested.
The President of the United States attending seances during the Civil War is the most insane thing you've ever told me.
Wait until you hear what the medium said.
Oh, no.
One medium claimed Willie's spirit appeared and told Lincoln the Union would win the war. Another medium said Lincoln had a prophetic gift and could sense future events.
Did he believe it?
That's the thing. Lincoln never committed. He quoted the Bible constantly but never joined a church. He talked about God but also about fate, destiny, providence, this vague cosmic force guiding everything.
So he's hedging his bets. Maybe it's God, maybe it's fate, maybe it's just me having a bad week.
Exactly. And in his final weeks, he talked about it more and more. His second inaugural address, March 4th, 1865, just 6 weeks before he died, is basically a theological essay. He's saying the war happened because of slavery and maybe God is punishing America for it.
That's heavy.
It's incredibly heavy. He's processing 600,000 deaths through this framework of divine justice. And right after he gives that speech, he starts having the death dreams. First one is the ship dream. He's on a vessel moving really fast toward a dark, unknown shore. He tells his cabinet this is a recurring dream he had before every major battle. Antietam, Gettysburg, Vicksburg, same dream every time. Always means something big is about to happen.
And this time he thinks it means his death.
Yeah, but he doesn't cancel his plans, doesn't beef up security, just keeps going.
Why?
Because he's Lincoln. The man is self-discipline, melancholy, and recklessness all rolled into one.
That description doesn't even make sense.
Neither does attending seances in the White House, but here we are.
Okay, but there's another dream, right? You mentioned the mirror?
Oh yeah, the mirror dream. This one's wild. Lincoln told Layman that one night right after the election, he looked in a mirror and saw two reflections of himself, one alive and in full colour, one pale and ghostly.
That's a horror movie.
Totally. And Mary said it meant he'd win re-election but die during his second term, which is exactly what happened.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out.
Same. And whether you think this is supernatural or just Lincoln's brain processing trauma and exhaustion, the point is he genuinely believed something was guiding events and he kept going anyway.
That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid.
That's the argument. I think it's stupid. You can believe in fate and lock your doors.
I think it's brave. He knew he might die and he chose to finish the work anyway.
He chose to go to the theatre with the worst bodyguard in American history, which is not brave, it's reckless.
We haven't gotten to the bodyguard yet.
Oh, we will. Trust me. Okay, so April 14th, 1865. 5 days after Lee's surrender, Lincoln wakes up, has breakfast with his family, tells them he feels lighter than he has in years.
That's ominous.
Super ominous. He says, I never felt better in my life. He's laughing, joking, making plans for after his presidency, says he wants to travel, maybe go to California, visit Jerusalem.
Wait, Jerusalem?
Yeah. He tells Mary he wants to see the Holy Land before he dies, this random dream he's had. And she's happy because he seems happy, which is rare for Lincoln. Then he goes to a cabinet meeting and he tells them about the ship dream again, the dark shore. And he says, gentlemen, something extraordinary is about to happen.
And they think it's good news.
They think maybe it's about the South, surrendering completely. But multiple people said Lincoln looked distant, sad, like he was saying goodbye. So he finishes the meeting, signs paperwork, meets with people, and in the afternoon he tells someone, I wish Lamont were here tonight.
Where's Lamont?
Richmond, on assignment. Lincoln sent him there, which means his best bodyguard is 200 miles away.
Okay, so who's guarding him?
A guy named John Frederick Parker.
Let me guess, Parker's terrible.
Parker is without exaggeration the worst bodyguard in American history. This man had a documented record of showing up drunk to his shifts, sleeping on duty, and allegedly visiting brothels while he was supposed to be working.
Was he hired off Craigslist?
Craigslist didn't exist yet, but somehow yes. This man should not have been guarding a ham sandwich, let alone the President of the United States.
How did he even get the job?
Political connections. His wife knew someone who knew someone. This is what happens when you hire based on favours instead of competence.
Okay, so terrible bodyguard. Lincoln's best guard is out of town, and Lincoln decides to go where?
Ford's Theatre to see a play called Our American Cousin. It's a comedy. Lincoln loves theatre. He thinks it'll be good for morale, good for the country to see him out and relaxed after the war.
Even though he's been getting death threats.
Even though he got one that morning. Someone sent him a letter saying, you will die soon. He read it, put it aside, went about his day.
I cannot emphasize enough how insane that is.
Peak Lincoln energy, just raw, unprocessed fatalism. So at 7:30 p.m., he and Mary get in a carriage and head to the theatre. The play's already started. They walk in and the audience erupts, standing ovation, cheering. The band plays Hail to the Chief. Lincoln waves, looks embarrassed, sits down in the state box.
And where's John Parker?
Great question. Parker is supposed to sit outside the door to the box. For the first act he does. Then he gets bored.
No.
And he leaves.
No.
He abandons his post. Most historians think he went to a bar next door. So now Lincoln is sitting in the box completely unguarded, and down in the audience there's a guy named John Wilkes Booth.
The actor.
The actor, one of the most famous in America, handsome, charming, from a legendary acting family, and a fanatical Confederate sympathizer who thinks Lincoln is a tyrant who destroyed the South.
But the war's over. Lee surrendered.
Doesn't matter to Booth. He's been planning this for months. Originally wanted to kidnap Lincoln, hold him hostage, trade him for Confederate prisoners. But after Lee surrendered, he decided on assassination.
As one does.
As one does. And here's the thing. Booth knows this theatre inside and out. He's performed here. He knows the layout, knows the play, knows there's a line in Act 3 that always gets a huge laugh. And during that laugh, he can shoot Lincoln and maybe escape in the chaos.
That's terrifyingly well planned.
It is. So Booth goes to a bar, has a whiskey, steadies his nerves. Then at around 10 p.m, he walks into Ford's Theatre, goes upstairs, finds the door to the state box unguarded.
Because Parker left.
Because Parker left. Booth opens the door, steps inside. Lincoln is sitting in a rocking chair holding Mary's hand watching the play. And Booth pulls out a Derringer pistol, walks up behind him, and shoots him in the back of the head.
Just like that.
Just like that. Single shot, point blank range. Lincoln slumps forward. Mary starts screaming. Booth jumps from the box onto the stage, catches his spear on a Treasury flag, breaks his leg but still lands, stands up, shouts, "Sic semper tyr RAHness."
What does that mean?
Thus always to tyrants. It's what Brutus supposedly said when he killed Caesar. Booth sees himself as Brutus. Lincoln as Caesar. He thinks he's saving the Republic.
By murdering the guy who just saved the Republic.
Logic was not Booth's strong suit. So Booth limps out the back door. Total chaos in the theatre. People screaming, trying to figure out what happened. A doctor in the audience, 23-year-old Charles Leal, runs up to the box, examines Lincoln, realizes immediately there's no surgery that can save him. The bullet went into his brain.
So what do?
They carry him out of the theatre. He's 6'4", so it's awkward and awful. They take him across the street to a boarding house owned by William Peterson, lay him diagonally on a bed that's too small. His feet hang off the end, and for 9 hours, his cabinet, his friends, his family just sit there watching him breathe.
That's heartbreaking.
It's brutal. And Mary is beside herself, crying, screaming, "Why didn't I stop him? I told him not to go." And she's right. She had a bad feeling that night, suggested staying home, but Lincoln wanted to go.
And she gets blamed for it.
For the rest of her life. People said she was hysterical, unstable, but she was just a woman watching her husband die and knowing she'd tried to prevent it. Actually, here's something most people don't know. Mary was so overcome with grief that at one point they had her wait in a separate parlour. She was crying while her husband died without her nearby.
That's awful.
It's one of the most tragic details of the whole night. And meanwhile, Lincoln is just lying there, unconscious, breathing these long, ragged breaths. His secretary, Edwin Stanton, is taking notes, documenting everything, running the government from a boarding house bedroom. And at 7:22 a.m. on April 15th, 1865, Abraham Lincoln dies. Stanton says, now he belongs to the ages.
Which is beautiful and also ironic because Lincoln didn't want to belong to the ages. He wanted to finish Reconstruction.
Exactly. And this is where the successor problem becomes a catastrophe. Okay, so the Lincoln assassination was not a lone gunman situation. It was a conspiracy. Booth had co-conspirators, and the plan was way bigger than just killing Lincoln.
How much bigger?
The plan was to kill Lincoln, Vice President Johnson, and Secretary of State William Seward all on the same night. Decapitate the entire government, throw the Union into chaos.
That's terrorism.
It's one of the first major acts of domestic terrorism in American history, and it almost worked. So Booth's co-conspirator, Lewis Powell, went to Seward's house to kill him. Seward had been in a carriage accident, so he was bedridden wearing a neck brace. Powell broke in, fought Seward's son, stabbed Seward multiple times.
Oh my God.
But Seward survived. The neck brace deflected the knife from his throat. Pure accident.
That's the most accidentally lucky thing I've ever heard.
Right? Meanwhile, another conspirator, George Atzerodt, was supposed to kill Vice President Johnson. But Atzerodt got cold feet, got drunk at a bar instead. So Johnson survived by accident too. Which means out of 3 targets, only Lincoln died. The conspiracy failed. But it was enough.
Because Lincoln was the only one who mattered.
Exactly. And Booth knew this. After shooting Lincoln, he fled Washington with another conspirator, David Herold. They stopped at a tavern Mary Surratt had set up for them, grabbed supplies, then rode to the house of Dr. Samuel Mudd, M-U-D, 1D.
Why specify 1D?
Because people pronounce it different ways and we need clarity. It's mud, like dirt. Anyway, Mudd set Booth's broken leg and may or may not have known what Booth had done.
Did he?
Mudd claimed innocence, but he was a Confederate sympathiser who'd met Booth before. A military court convicted him as a conspirator, though he was later pardoned. His descendants maintain he was innocent, but historians remain divided.
So probably guilty.
Probably guilty, but we'll never know for sure. Anyway, Booth and Herold hide out in Maryland for almost 2 weeks, and the whole time Booth thinks he's going to be celebrated as a hero. He's keeping a diary, writing about how he's Brutus, how he saved the Republic, how history will remember him.
But that's not what happened.
Not even close, because even Confederates thought killing Lincoln was a bad move. The war was over. Lee had surrendered. Killing Lincoln didn't change that. It just made everything worse.
And Booth didn't realise this?
He was genuinely shocked. He's hiding in barns, reading newspapers, and he's furious. He expected parades. He's getting condemnation. Even Southern papers are calling him a murderer and a fool.
Imagine your whole plan backfiring that spectacularly.
We're getting there. So the Union Army is hunting him. Thousands of soldiers searching Maryland and Virginia. And on April 26th, they find him hiding in a tobacco barn near Bowling Green, Virginia.
Did it work?
Sort of. In the chaos, a sergeant named Boston Corbett, who, by the way, violated direct orders not to shoot fires through a gap in the barn wall and hits Booth in the neck, paralyzes him.
How do you violate orders and shoot the most wanted man in America?
Corbett later said God told him to do it.
Of course I did.
So they drag Booth out of the burning barn and he's dying. Takes a few hours. And his last words were reportedly useless, useless. Meaning he finally realised his plan failed. He didn't save the Confederacy. He didn't become a hero. He just killed a president and doomed the South to a harsher Reconstruction under Andrew Johnson.
Which brings us to the disaster.
Oh, God, yeah. Andrew Johnson becomes president and it is a catastrophe. Everything Lincoln wanted for Reconstruction, generosity, amnesty, integration of freed people into society, Johnson opposes all of it.
How bad are we talking?
Imagine if Lincoln had picked a YouTube comment section to be vice president.
That bad?
Worse. Johnson pardons former Confederates, gives them back their land, lets them pass black codes that basically re-enslave people under new names. He fights with Congress constantly, gets impeached, but survives removal by 1 vote.
So Lincoln's death didn't just kill Lincoln.
It killed Reconstruction. And this is the mechanism people need to understand. If you're a transformational leader and you die before finishing the job, your successor can undo everything. Lincoln literally had nightmares about this, and it happened.
What's the modern parallel?
Oh man, think about any situation where a visionary leader dies or leaves and the replacement reverses course. Steve Jobs and Apple post 97, founders stepping down from companies they built, political leaders who create coalitions that collapse the moment they're gone. The lesson is succession planning matters. If you're building something big, you need infrastructure that can survive without you. Lincoln didn't do that. He thought he had time.
And he didn't.
And he didn't.
Okay, so I need to understand the paranormal stuff one more time because this has been bothering me. Lincoln had death dreams, attended seances, talked about fate constantly. Was he psychic or was this just trauma?
Honestly, both. Here's what we know. Lincoln had clinical depression. He'd had it his whole life. Called it the hypo, short for hypochondria, which back then meant deep melancholy.
So he was predisposed to dark thoughts.
Yeah, and he'd lived through unimaginable loss. His mother died when he was 9. His first love, Anne Rutledge, died at 22. His son Eddie died at age 4 in 1850. His son Willie died at a later in 1862. Then he watched 600,000 Americans kill each other.
That's unbearable.
It really is. So when he started having death dreams, part of it was his brain processing constant threats and exhaustion and grief. But some of his premonitions were weirdly specific.
Like the coffin dream.
Exactly. He described it in detail to multiple people where it was, who was standing around it, what the soldiers said, and then 5 days later, that's almost exactly what happened. His body was in the East Room. People were mourning. Guards were standing watch. Now, was that supernatural or was it just his subconscious understanding the danger he was in?
I mean, if you're getting death threats daily and refusing security, it doesn't take a psychic to predict assassination.
Right. This is what I've been saying. You can have premonitions if you want, but also lock your doors and don't go to the theatre with John Parker.
But I think you're missing something. Lincoln believed he had a job to finish. He thought if he lived in fear, he couldn't do the work. So he chose to keep going, even knowing the risk.
That's not brave. That's reckless.
It's both. He was brave enough to keep going and reckless enough to ignore basic safety. Those aren't contradictions.
They absolutely are contradictions. Bravery is facing danger. Recklessness is creating unnecessary danger.
He didn't create it. Booth created it.
He made it easier. He went to a public theatre with terrible security after receiving death threats.
Okay, but if he'd stayed home hiding, would he have been Lincoln?
He'd have been alive.
He'd have been a president hiding from his own people. That's not democracy.
Democracy is great, but you know what's also great? Not getting shot in the head.
I can't believe we're arguing about whether Lincoln should have lived differently.
I can't believe you're defending his security choices.
I'm not defending them. I'm saying I understand them. There's a difference.
Fine, okay, I'll grant you that. But here's my point. Lincoln's fatalism made him careless, and carelessness got him killed.
Maybe. But his willingness to stay visible, to keep going, even when he knew the risk, that's why people remember him. If he'd hidden, he'd just be the guy who won the war. Instead, he became a martyr.
I'd rather he'd been alive.
Me too. But history had other plans.
Or Booth had other plans.
Or both.
Anyway, there's another weird detail I didn't mention. The assassination happened on Good Friday. Lincoln died Easter weekend, and the symbolism was not lost on Americans. He immediately became this Christ-like figure, the man who died to save the Union.
That's heavy.
It's incredibly heavy, and whether that was cosmic timing or just bad luck, it shaped how Americans remembered him. He wasn't just a president. He was a martyr, a symbol, the man who held the country together even as it killed him.
Do you think he knew that would happen?
I think part of him did. I think that's why he kept going. He understood that sometimes the story matters more than survival.
That's sad, but also kind of beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Lincoln knew he might die, and he chose to do the work anyway. That's not just fatalism, that's commitment.
Now, who's being romantic?
I can think he was reckless and respect what he was trying to do. Those aren't mutually exclusive.
Fair enough.
So what do you think Lincoln would say if he could see America now?
Oh, man. I think he'd be heartbroken and hopeful at the same time. Heartbroken because the things he died trying to prevent, division, racial inequality, political violence, they're all still here.
But also hopeful?
Yeah, because there's been progress. We've had a black president. We talk about equality even when we fail at it. The Union survived. That mattered to him more than anything.
I think he'd also say, I told you this would be hard. He never promised easy. He promised the work would be worth it.
And he'd probably tell us to stop arguing and get back to work.
He'd definitely say that. Though he'd also argue. Lincoln loved arguing. Read the Lincoln-Douglas debates. The man could verbally spar for hours.
So he'd fit right in here.
He absolutely would.
So what's the takeaway for people listening right now?
I think it's this. If you're building something that matters, plan for succession. Make sure your vision can survive without you. Don't be Lincoln. Be smarter than Lincoln.
But also be willing to take risks for what you believe in.
Sure, but smart risks. Not go to the theatre with a drunk bodyguard risks.
Okay, yes. Smart risks only.
And maybe consult the spirits, but also use common sense.
That should be our tagline. The Mike and Mark history experience, consult the spirits, but use common sense.
I like it.
Anyway, that's the story of Lincoln's final days. From Lee's surrender to the bullet in Ford's theatre to the absolute disaster of Andrew Johnson. The paranormal president who saw his death coming and kept going anyway.
Wild.
Completely wild.
And genuinely tragic because everything he feared came true. His death, Johnson's presidency, Reconstruction failing.
But also the Union survived. That's what he cared about most.
True. The long game won, even if the short game was a catastrophe.
History's full of that. Short-term disasters, long-term victories.
Or vice versa.
Also true.
All right, we've probably covered enough for one episode.
Should we end on something hopeful?
Sure, Lincoln's vision of a united nation where everyone has a chance to succeed, we're still working on it, still fighting for it. And that means his work isn't finished, but it also means we can still make it happen.
That's actually hopeful.
I have my moments. Anyway, if you like this episode, if you learned something, if you're now going to be more careful about your security choices, let us know. Share it. Tell people we're trying to make history interesting.
And paranormal, apparently.
That too.
All right, that's it. Thanks for listening.
And please, tell at least one person today who would benefit about this podcast and about Mike and Mark.
Your word of mouth support for our podcast makes a big difference, and we thank you deeply in advance.
Ciao.
See you later.